If you thought there was going to be some kind of collaboration, crossover, or cameo, keep dreaming. In 2013, everyone's favorite nerd got his own game. Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures released on PC via Steam and was eventually ported to Nintendo consoles? Huh. Anyway, the game was developed by Freak Zone Games and is undoubtedly an action platformer. System requirements, even back in 2013, were almost nothing. With a Pentium 4 and less than 1 GB of RAM, you're able to play this game, but if you have something more powerful, you're gonna have a breeze playing this game. This is thanks, in part, to a toned-down pixel art style, but still, the game features extremely fast load times and extremely smooth gameplay. Almost all of the features people identify with that they like about platformers show up in the game, along with many tropes and complaints that the nerd covered in many of his own videos. Everything from insta-death blocks to falling blocks to obstacles and enemies that can be timed just right are present. While your player can get knocked back, the knockback distance isn't extreme, and you do have some control over the nerd while in the air. Players can pick up different power-ups that can be triggered and do things like glitch the game, freezing all of the enemies, or killing all the enemies on the screen. You can shoot in multiple directions using your NES Zapper-inspired gun, and holding a trigger button on the controller allows you to lock your position and fire at different angles. If, or should I say when, you die in the game, you will reload from a checkpoint very quickly. Checkpoints aren't necessarily abundant, but they also aren't once per level sparse either. To give yourself a breath and a little peace of mind, the Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures has 3 difficulty levels, and only the hardest actually hides the checkpoints from you. They're still there, but not knowing the last time you hit a checkpoint adds to the anxiety a player may experience. Difficulty levels also affect the number of hit points and total number of lives a player has, the easiest giving unlimited lives, and you're gonna need them to map out the levels. The higher difficulties will be reserved for later playthroughs, period. Trying to tackle the game on its hardest difficulty out of the gate won't get you very far at all, no matter how good you are at platformers. The graphics, while inspired by pixel art, are large and easily identifiable. The sprite style is clean and impressively detailed, and the game features different unlockable and playable characters with different powers, as well as cameos from recognizable YouTube stars. Glow and lighting effects look good and are quite fluid. The constant 60 frames per second makes the game feel extremely fast-paced. The sprites that are obviously heavily inspired from other franchises are identifiable and bring familiarity with humor to every play session. Distant J is credited as the musician for the soundtrack of Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures. They do a fantastic job at bringing full stereo chiptune to life with a modern sound. Each level features different music, though I personally feel it would have been a nice touch if the musical nods were a little more obvious. It's an excellent chiptune soundtrack in its own right. But if there would have been songs that took cues from games like Castlevania or Mega Man or Doom, I think it would have been great. I asked for something like this because the sound effects did just that. While the game has its own unique soundscape, there are no doubt familiar sounds that play throughout the game that are meant to make you think back to other games. One prime example are the disappearing blocks made famous by the Mega Man franchise. Story in this game, sadly, is lacking. Since the game is a digital download, there is of course no manual, but the game does have an intro cutscene where you find yourself playing as the nerd, and he and his friends are playing a game, when suddenly they get pulled into the game. For no reason other than making a reference to the basement where James Rolfe films his AVGN episodes, the nerd momentarily escapes into the basement, but is also immediately pulled into Gameland. And that's literally all the intro you're given. Each level, when finished, simply ends, and then you go back to a level select screen. On the easy difficulty, your time and number of deaths are not accurately tracked and don't matter. There are final bosses of each level, and although they taunt you, they really don't do anything to tell you how you ended up inside the game. If you do make it all the way to the end of the game, the final boss is a deep reference that AVGN fans will get a chuckle out of, but even the actual ending of the game still leaves a bit to be desired. Some people may say that the strength of Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures doesn't lie in its story, but is in all of its references. References to AVGN episodes, references to other YouTubers, references to the games themselves and all the tropes that make up our hobby. References that can be found in the characters you befriend or battle, references in the designs or styles of the levels, or references found in little audible and musical cues. The further reality is, this game actually has strong core mechanics. It's challenging in all the ways that retro gamers claim they want, but it's also fair in its difficulty. It genuinely feels like every death is the player's fault, and that you can improve with each play session. Okay, maybe not every death. Make no mistake, this game is not for the faint of heart. But if you're dedicated enough, if you're willing to put in the time, then you should know that this is the kind of game you can deeply enjoy. But even on its easiest setting, this game is difficult, and you know what? I take it back. I take it all back. This game is awful. Don't play it unless you want to be replacing controllers and televisions for the rest of your life, because you're going to be destroying everything you own out of rage. With every death, you slip further into insanity. This game is awful. This game is trash. This game is a skyscraper, pocket protectors, and poop. Sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know where that came from. Despite its difficulty, Angry Video Game Nerd Adventure is a solid action platformer. Sadly for lore geeks, there isn't much of a plot to enjoy, but that doesn't mean you can't nerd out to our story so far. Hey everybody, this is Garrett, aka New Angel, and thank you for watching the 100th episode of Our Story So Far TV. I really felt like this would make a pretty good 100th episode, a nice little April Fool's treat, plus, just a good nod to essentially the godfather of all gaming videos on YouTube. I mean, without James and the Angry Video Game Nerd, a lot of us probably wouldn't even be here. So although it took a long time to figure out what I was going to do for episode number 100, I just felt like this was the most appropriate. If you agree or disagree, either way, just leave a comment down below. I'd love to know you're watching. This is my first official new episode of Our Story So Far TV on the newangel.net channel, so I'm really looking forward to doing some more, lots of different types of gaming content, not just Our Story So Far, so let's see where things go. Stay with me on this journey, subscribe to see more. Until next time, take care of yourself.